The U.S. Arab Radio Network is proud to offer the Ray Hanania Show with veteran journalist Ray Hanania, the U.S. correspondent for the Arab News newspaper. U.S. Arab Radio broadcasts content Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. on WNZK AM 690 in Detroit, WDMV 700 in Washington, D.C., and simulcast through stations around the country. Programs will rerun from 5 till 6 p.m. Visit us on Facebook at U.S. Arab Radio. And we're also streaming live on Facebook.com/Arab News.
In order to understand the challenges we have in the Middle East, we have to understand both sides and look at everything with a smart mind. It doesn't mean that we have to agree. It means that we all have to be smart. We have to share one goal. And for me, that is peace based on nonviolence and compromise that respects the intractable and unresolved differences sometimes between both sides. And then we can resolve the issue between Palestine and Israel. And there is no better time to do that than during the holy month of Ramadan, which begins this week. Right now, I'd like to introduce my two guests who will help us understand, especially there are a lot of Americans who are listening to the show who need to understand Ramadan, but also respect it as a religion, not some political movement as it sometimes is portrayed by critics. Our guest is Saeed Khan, a professor from Wayne State University. And one of the things that Professor Khan, I hope, can help us understand is how Ramadan has now been accepted in American society more than it ever was. And also, we're going to talk with one of our past guests who I just love her. She does a great job in addressing issues. Arab News section editor and writer, Rawan Radwan. Welcome, Saeed. Welcome, Rawan, to the Ray Hanania show this morning.
Good morning and salam alaikum and Ramadan Kareem to all of you.
Rawan, you hear it? Go ahead.
Good afternoon from my end and Ramadan Mubarak to all.
Now, and then is that the proper for non-Muslims and non-Arabs? Is that the proper? I saw a story about somebody wishing everybody a happy Eid, which I just assumed is the Arabic word for holiday. What's the proper way to greet somebody during Ramadan?
I think all of these are acceptable. I've seen so much on social media lately saying wishing somebody a happy Ramadan would be like wishing somebody a happy Lent, a period of time where there's abstention and challenge. And actually, I think that that's the wrong way to approach Ramadan. Ramadan is considered to be a month of blessing for Muslims around the world. It allows Muslims to downshift a little bit, maybe even get off the grid for a little while to focus on themselves, their spiritual well-being, hopefully enhance that discipline that comes from a bit of abstention. An empathy that is certainly shared then with people who throughout the year don't necessarily have. And as a result of it, even when it's around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening, right before breaking one's fast and you're really hitting the bend, so to speak, it's still a happy occasion.
I know for many Christians, we respect Ramadan. We live in the Muslim world. As Christian Arabs, and we, participate in Ramadan in many ways. The fasting, I know that a lot of my relatives in the Middle East fast along with Muslims to show support and work. Rawan, how important is Ramadan as a Muslim woman?
It is very important, not only as a Muslim woman, it's an important event for any and every Muslim. And just so everyone knows, it's not forced on everyone. Of course, only those who are able to fast can fast. So you can't force. So you have women who are pregnant or are nursing mothers. They're not obligated to nurse. You also have the elderly, the ill, the sick, and we're talking as simple as something as like those who are diabetic, that can go into diabetic shock if they don't nourish themselves, so if they don't eat. So they're not obligated to fast. But it's not about abstention from food. It's more than that. It's more about, just like Mr. Saeed said, it's more about focusing on oneself. It's basically finding the right time and making time to basically sit on your own and just focus on what you want to be and how you want to be a better version of yourself, and basically come up with a habit that will stay longer for just those 30 days. It's building a habit of progressing your inner, you just developing who you are, and ensuring that closeness, that relationship with the maker, and also with your siblings, with your family members, with your loved ones, are also strengthened through peace, quiet, through just sitting in that corner in your room and just reading either the Quran or there's supplications, or just focusing on yourself. Ramadan does that for everyone.
We're going to take a quick fast break, if we don't mind to use that word, a little pun. We're going to do a ad break. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking with our guest, Saeed Khan, a professor from Wayne State University, on how Ramadan has been accepted in American society. And also, we're going to go into a little more depth with Arab News section editor and writer Rawan Radwan on the precautions regarding coronavirus that are being taken in Mecca for the pilgrims that are visiting there. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back right after these messages.
.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
While we've been staying safe at home, scientists have been on a journey. The destination, a COVID-19 vaccine. This journey began decades ago with research into other coronaviruses. Scientists built from there with months of research and development, cooperation with other experts worldwide, and clinical trials on tens of thousands of volunteers of diverse race, age, and health status. They arrived at a safe, effective vaccine, and hundreds of thousands in Michigan have already been vaccinated. But the next step is ours. We need to get the vaccine when we can. Keep wearing masks correctly and taking precautions until we reach our destination, freedom from COVID-19, and getting back to the lives we love. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Are your hands feeling numb? Do you feel pain opening up a jar, turning a key? Are you noticing that your elbow and your shoulder are becoming stiff? Or were you recently injured in your arm? Hello, I'm Dr. Albanjit Katranji, and at the Katranji Hand Center, which just recently opened down the street from the Somerset Mall, we can provide you with the latest in hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder care. Visit us at www.katranjihandcenter.com to learn the latest techniques that we have to offer you, and I look forward to taking care of you.
Visit us in Troy at 1565 West Big Beaver Road, Building F, or call Katranji Hand Center for an appointment at 248-869-4263. That's 248-869-4263.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
The U.S. Arab Radio Network is proud to offer the Ray Hanania Show with veteran journalist Ray Hanania, the U.S. correspondent for the Arab News newspaper. U.S. Arab Radio broadcasts content Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. on WNZK AM 690 in Detroit, WDMV 700 in Washington, D.C., and simulcast through stations around the country. Programs will rerun from 5 till 6 p.m. Visit us on Facebook at U.S. Arab Radio, and we're also streaming live on Facebook.com/Arab News.
And welcome back to the Ray Hanania Show with my guest, Saeed Khan, a professor from Wayne State University, talking about how Ramadan has been accepted in American society more and more over the years, and also Arab News section editor Rawan Radwan, who's going to talk to us about processes and safeguards and procedures that have been taken in Saudi Arabia to protect the health and well-being of pilgrims who go there every year. So Professor Khan, tell us about how has Ramadan been accepted in the United States? I mean, do we accept it, and do both sides accept it? Because the United States is, and in the West is still they're gonna play music. People are still gonna be eating. It's not gonna be everywhere like in the Middle East, where everybody seems to completely acknowledge and respect each other's religions more and more. But here it's a little bit of a mix. How has it changed over the years?
Well, Muslims in America have, of course, lived and continue to live as a minority community. And they don't find a broader community and society to really be incompatible. There's no imposition. If Muslims want to stay in the Muslim lane, they're more than welcome to do so. There's no compulsion to drink alcohol or to eat pork or to engage and indulge in anything that would be part of the broader cultural mosaic. And so having that space has always been part of the Muslim American experience. At the same time, what we're noticing is that Muslim Americans are developing more visibility and, as you said, more acceptance within broader society on a few different levels. One is corporate America is certainly recognizing Muslim Americans. We see a lot more companies and stores not only providing Ramadan greetings, but also providing Ramadan products, greeting cards, and other kind of merchandise and paraphernalia. But I think the most important thing that we're seeing is also at the institutional level. Schools, for example, are becoming much more accommodating to the needs of young Muslim students, recognizing that maybe students who are fasting during the daylight hours might be operating in a slower gear. There is now recognition in the largest public school district in the country in New York City that the Eid festival will be recognized as a public holiday for school, for students. And then there's also social media. The number of people who are greeting Muslims with a Ramadan Mubarak or a happy Ramadan, genuinely curious to want to learn about Ramadan and what is it that Muslims have to endure and why do they do it. A very popular meme is not even water, because that's one of the most common questions that Muslims are asked is that, okay, we get it that maybe between sunrise and sunset you don't eat, you abstain from smoking, from marital relations and other, but not even water. So it provides a wonderful opportunity for that normalization. Something that other religions went through as well. Catholics, for example, when I was growing up, I always noticed that on Fridays, the menu in the cafeteria at school was really the same. It was fish sandwiches and macaroni and cheese. I learned later that that had to do, of course, with Catholic students with meatless Fridays. So the United States has always had that mechanism to go ahead and accommodate for religious minorities, and Muslims are no different.
I remember growing up with the Jewish community back in the 50s and 60s, and the Jewish community would put up Christmas trees and call them Hanukkah bushes because Hanukkah wasn't really accepted back then in the 50s and 60s the way it is today. So it seems like this is a normal process for every religion in the United States, that the Christian and the Americans are more I don't want to use the word tolerant because it's not a tolerance, it's accepting, accepting other religions. Yet we still see some issues surface, don't we, where no matter how much and how many people, how many officials welcome Ramadan, as we saw the president and other elected officials do this way, we've seen still some of that anti-Muslim attitudes and incidents that have come across. We're never going to get away from that, are we?
Unfortunately, it seems like it's going to be a challenge that'll be with us for quite a while. And I think it's important to remember that it's not just necessarily directed toward Muslims. I remember that in 2012, when then Mitt Romney, the former governor of Massachusetts, now senator from Utah, was the presidential candidate on the Republican ticket, there were a lot of people who had a problem with a Mormon being someone running for high office. So we see, and I think it's interesting for Muslims as non-Christians to see some of the conflicts within the Christian narrative. It sometimes seems a little bit odd to us, as I imagine it would be for Christians to look at some of the sectarian or denominational issues that exist within the Muslim community.
Isn't the burden on our backs as Arabs? I mean, as a Palestinian, I had to spend my whole life explaining what a Palestinian was just to get Americans to understand it. Sometimes we don't do a very good job of communicating with American society. We don't use the PR. We don't use the process of education. We react to the anger more than we look. Not everybody hates us. Some do, but some are just cautious. They're afraid. They're afraid of things they don't know. And sometimes we don't want to blanket everybody as hating us. And I bet the majority of people out there just sometimes don't understand who we are. Are we doing enough to educate Americans about Islam, about Muslims, about Ramadan?
There's always more that can be done. And part of the essence of that is really to be neighborly. To not be offended by somebody who's asking a question. Most of the time, the questions come from a very good place and good faith, wanting to learn. There certainly are people who ask the gotcha questions. But generally speaking, we find that when it's a neighbor, when it's a coworker, when it's a colleague, they just want to know. And we can't necessarily presume that everybody knows, that it's somehow self-evident for a religion like Islam and for the practices, especially getting over the hump that it is invariably in a different language. It's in a different cultural register. So definitely, I think it's important to go ahead. Sometimes we can be proactive in providing that information, but at the very least, when it comes to being responsive, for us to be open about it.
And Islam is no different than other two major religions, Judaism and Christianity. What's the most important thing that non-Muslims should know about Ramadan moving forward here in the United States and in the West?
I think the most important thing to recognize about Ramadan is that it has both spiritual as well as social dimensions to it. I mean, here is a month where Muslims are, as Sister Rawan said, checking in to become a better version of themselves. I always think about it as being like a computer with an operating system. This is an opportunity to troubleshoot, to see if there's any bugs that need to be debugged, and give oneself the update and the upgrade to a better operating system, which can then allow people to, on a myriad of issues, including social interaction with people outside the Muslim community, form a better society.
And let's turn to Rawan Radwan about the preparations and things taking place in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca. What's happening there? What's being done for the coronavirus, for protection of pilgrims?
Well, as you know, yesterday was the first day of Ramadan and today is the second day. And just before the initial, start of Ramadan, the presidency of the affairs of two holy mosques have issued a series of guidelines and protocols with relevant authorities involved as well, such as the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Health. And all of this was to ensure that every worshiper and all pilgrims that are arriving at either the Prophet's Mosque in Medina or the Grand Mosque at Mecca receive the proper care and attention that they deserve, that they come first. Their health comes first. So the first thing that they issued was that no worshiper will be allowed in unless they have received at least one of the vaccine jabs and has recovered from the COVID vaccine, the coronavirus, excuse me. The reason why they did this is to ensure that the prevalence or the occurrence of an infection is dumbed down to just literally 0%. no chances will be taken whatsoever.
Do they need to bring something that shows that, like a card or something, that they had the vaccination?
We don't do cards anymore. We have gone digital, and
Wow.
we're literally digital by default. We have something called like a health passport. It's not a health passport per se. It's an application that will allow you into establishments and commercial establishments across Saudi Arabia. The app, it's called Tawakkalna, and it basically shows a barcode with, it just shows your name, your ID number, and a barcode with a color. It depends on what your status is. So if you're, let's say, if you're vaccinated, if you're fully immune, then it's a darker green color. If you just received one jab, it's a lighter green. And if, let's say, you arrived from, I don't know, the US, for example, the barcode could either be a blue or a purple color. And that will then need you to just isolate and things like that. But
I hope the White House and our government is listening, because that's a phenomenal idea. So far, all I have is a card that goes in my passport when I'm allowed to go to the airport, hopefully soon.
No, you cannot be allowed in anywhere. And I'm talking even as something as small as a shop at a gas station. You can't go in unless you show that you are cleared to enter. And of course, going back to the topic of the entrance to the holy mosques, this year, it's refreshing, honestly, seeing like how last year was just, empty of worshipers. This is not something that you would want to see in anywhere, whether you are a Muslim or not. It just shows how big of an impact this pandemic had on people. And seeing worshipers back again, it would just basically brought hope back again to the lives of Muslims everywhere, and making sure that the worshipers enter, safe. The rules are very strict. They're very, very rigid. You cannot enter unless you're vaccinated, unless you've recovered. You have to go through certain entryways. You can't enter even with your car. You have to park your car somewhere. A bus will take you after proving that you have a reservation, and you enter. And of course, you can't make any reservations except through the Wakkalna app and another app called I'tamarna. So again, we're going very digital here. You have a very specific time period for you to stay at the mosque. You have about an hour and a half, at maximum 2 hours. You have a specific time slot. What else? Worshippers at the Grand Mosque in Mecca are allowed to just, perform Umrah across all hours of the day. For those who are wishing to pray, of course, you're only allowed in to pray, and you have to leave. For the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, the mosque closes after the evening prayers, the Taraweeh, the Isha and Taraweeh prayers. The mosque closes after that and then reopens just a little bit before, about a half an hour before the Fajr or dawn prayers. Again, reason being is they need to make sure that the people arriving are safe. And the fun thing is, it's just, they have, in the Grand Mosque, they have about 10,000 plus workers who work round the clock. The mosque is sanitized 10 times a day. So you can imagine the magnitude of just the work, and this is all to just make sure that people are safe. You can't go get a plastic cup just to drink water or Zamzam water, the holy Zamzam water. No, they're bottled up for you. And about 200,000 plus bottles are distributed per day. You cannot enter the mosque with your food, with just like a meal. No, you have to have your own. You are allowed in with just some dates, water, or milk, or what we call leban. It's like a yogurt drink, and that's it. What used to happen before was huge and long lines of meals being given or distributed to worshipers in prayer, like just waiting to break their fast. But it's not the case this time around.
Is there an anticipation that these new procedures are going to continue moving forward, or is it just for this coronavirus?
No, we're not sure, but this is for the long run. We know that this is going to be for the long run, and Hajj is the same. For example, you cannot go and you can't perform Hajj unless you're vaccinated. That's another example. So we're not really sure, but you know what? If it works, it works. And it has brought a lot of comfort to a lot of people instead of just, there's a lot of overcrowding in these, especially during the month of Ramadan, where everyone wants to go and perform their prayers during Ramadan. There's a saying by the Prophet that, and please, Mr. Saeed, correct me if I'm wrong here, that Umrah in Ramadan is an equivalent to a Hajj with the Prophet. Again, I'm not, that's the same.
It has the same spiritual reward, but it's not a substitute for the obligation of the Hajj. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
It's not a substitute, but it just shows that how much people want to go and perform Umrah during Ramadan. And there's just something very spiritual about it. There's this very calm and very, I'm lost for words here because it is very difficult to explain. I think Mr. Saeed knows what I'm talking about. And if everyone is safe and everyone comes in comfortably and just performs whatever their umrah, their rituals or the prayers, or even just to sit and meditate and just pray, just knowing that you're safe doing so is very comfortable, especially during this time.
All right, Saeed Khan, Professor Khan, any final thoughts about Ramadan and its acceptance in the U.S. That you want to share?
I would strongly welcome people who want to learn about Ramadan to find a Muslim American. Also, although it's a little bit more of a challenge now in the time of COVID, it's a bit difficult to go to Islamic centers or mosques, but certainly to consult websites. Now, as Sister Rawan said, we're all going digital. There's a lot of information that's available, but at least perhaps as some Muslim Americans are doing, try to get invited to a virtual iftar, a breaking of a fast. That's something that certainly COVID allowed to have happen last year, which will continue this year. And then help set up those building blocks that once, God willing, we are out of the COVID lockdown, that we can come out a better version and with better bonds and ties to people socially, in which they can better understand and experience Ramadan together.
Well, in the spirit of Ramadan and a beautiful religion, I want to offer both of you, Saeed Khan, professor in the Department of History and lecturer at the Department of Near East and Asian Studies at Wayne State University, a Ramadan Mubarak and Ramadan Kareem, and also to our friend Rawan Radwan, an Arab News deputy section editor and writer based in Saudi Arabia. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak, Rawan. Thank you both so much for joining us and offering a little insight. I mean, I'm sure there's so much more that we could do. This could go on for hours, but it's so important. And I appreciate both of you joining us this morning to talk about it. Thank you.
Shukran, and thank you.
You're welcome. I'm Ray Hanania, leaving you with a Ramadan Kareem. Thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.